the state of Israel is almost seen as a pariah state in that neighborhood, and that the only friend they have, real friend if you may, is the United States of America. The situation between Israel and Iran is one that poses very many questions and does not lend itself to easy answers, and in my view must be situated in the context of history. If you look at Iran, the Iran that we know now, we've got to go back to the 1920s when the Reza Pahlavi family became the dominating dynasty, until the Reza Pahlavi was removed in 1941 by the Allied powers, the British and the Soviet Union, for being not willing to do their bidding. But he was then succeeded by his son, Mohammad Shah Reza Pahlavi, who liberalized Iran in many ways and who was very compliant with the West. And of course, that then led to the emergence of the Ayatollahs, and culminating in the 1979 emergence of the Ayatollahs and the abolition of the Pahlavi dynasty. And something begins to happen at that time, because the Ayatollahs come in with a theocratic regime which clearly states that they do not recognize the state of Israel, and that in fact the state of Israel must be wiped off the surface of the earth. And they say that this Zionist regime must actually go. So that is the official stated position of the Iran regime, or the Tehran regime. And the fact that then they started enriching uranium, almost reaching weapon-grade enrichment, then raised alarm, particularly in the United States of America and in Israel. And the argument that is being put forth by the Netanyahu regime is that they have credible evidence, or that they had credible evidence that the Iranians had crossed the red line in terms of enrichment, and that they cannot allow the regime to have a nuclear weapon. It is instructive that at the time when the attack on Iran took place, there was diplomatic effort, or there were diplomatic efforts which were being mediated in Saudi Arabia and within that particular environment, with a view to convincing the Iranians that they ought not to use the uranium for non-peaceful purposes. And to the casual observers, like all of us, we thought that they were going on very well. At least when you listen to the President of the United States of America, one took the view that the negotiations would give birth to a result which would be acceptable to all, and the International Atomic Energy was supervising. But for some reason, in what in the eyes of many appears to be a unilateral decision by the Israelis, but what we now know, had the nod of the United States of America, there is a conflagration which has resulted in a tit for tat, and which is affecting populations. We have seen in the last one week the Israelis saying that they now have air domination over the whole of Tehran. We have seen the use of hypersonic missiles which have hit Tel Aviv and have hit Haifa. And for the first time, we see a disruption of normal life in Israel, which had not taken place during the conflict in Gaza, and even when the Houthis were launching their ballistic missiles from Yemen. The question is, should the world be worried? Yes, the world should be worried. The world should be worried because there is a powder keg. What one fears is that if indeed you are to hit some of the bunkers where the enriched uranium is stored, what would be the impact in terms of the pollution that would take place? Who else will be drawn into the conflict? Remember that the Tehran regime has a satellite, or what one would call client organization, that work with it or work for it. You talk about the Houthis, and that is in Yemen. You talk about the Hezbollah in Syria and in Lebanon. What will they do? And one can also not discount what is being heard in the grapevine, that the North Koreans have said, we are ready to help. The Chinese are also said to be said, we are ready to help, even if it is in a subterranean manner. And the United States of America thus far has not entered into the conflict directly, but we know that their military assets are moving closer and closer to the theater of war. So if those are the early signs of a war that is big, of course, I'm one who is slow to use the term world war, but there are those who are already saying that these are the early signs of a third world war. But I would be much more hesitant, because one can see that there are voices in different parts of the world that are calling on Israel and calling on Iran to step back and ask themselves what value is going to be achieved if the conflagration continues in the manner that it is. But as the saying goes, the jury is still out, there is a tit for tat, and there are internal contradictions, both in Israel and in Iran. In Iran, there are segments of the population who are anti the theocratic regime of the Ayatollahs, and they possibly think that this is an opportunity for regime change. Within Israel, there are those who are fatigued that there is little economic activity that is taking place in different parts of Israel. We know that Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv is almost out of commission or is under constant danger. A number of airlines are no longer flying to Tel Aviv. So all these factors conjoined is sending an unequivocal message to the players that diplomacy should be given its pride of place. As to whether that will happen is another debate. But I would want to imagine, as other commentators are saying, that it is critical that the United States of America enters into the arena of diplomacy, because the